Tere jälle, kallis PÖFFi TV vaataja. Oleme siin järgmist filmi vaikselt sisse juhatamas. See on siis pärit Lõuna-Aafrikast ja räägib väga huvitava loo. Lõuna-Aafrikal on kahtlemata väga huvitav ajalugu ja lugusid on seal küll ja küll. Ja meie režissöör Brett Michael Inns on leidnud siis ühe nendest ülesse ja vändanud sellest fantastilise filmi.
Sê wat ma vir jou gesê. Jy moet sê as jy magistraat vir jou vra. Wat is jou naam?
Benjamin Komuti.
Dis jou ma?
Fila Komuti.
Seun, ek gaan vir jou 'n paar maklike vrae vra. En ek wil hê jy moet vir my baie mooi antwoord. Ek wil hê jy moet nou so ver as moontlik terugdink. Kan jy onthou of jy dalk 'n ander naam gehad het?
Villa, sail. Sails is 'n slang deur die stof. Kan altyd agterna weer afstof.
Ek is 'n hele kindie. As jy is, ek is Benjamin Komuti. My ma is Fila Komuti.
Is ons hulle kos wat geraak het.
Ek sê jou dis lieg.
Nou wie se kind sê dan miskien?
Sy het daardie dag vir Benjamin verloor. Maar ons het almal 'n ma verloor toe hulle hom gevat het.
God vergewe ons baie dinge was. Maar God vergewe ons nie die kwaad wat ons 'n kind aandoen nie.
Right.
You're
Hello, Brett.
as well.
Hello, Brett. Good to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank
In
you for
Estonia
having
and in the studio, of course, also.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, as my opening question, just to look a bit behind the director itself, who is Brett, besides the filmmaking part?
Jeez, Brett is from South Africa, 5th generation. He loves traveling, he loves making movies, storytelling, good coffee, and he's getting married next year, so he's very happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so
Great to
much.
hear. Very nice.
Yeah.
So, you're a natural storyteller, as
Yeah.
is preferable for a director, probably.
Absolutely. I was that kid who used to get my siblings all together to make a movie on the family camera and edit it on a VHS machine, and then I'd charge people R2 a ticket to watch it. So,
All right.
little entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I usually continue with the question that where you find your stories, but with South Africa, it's I think it's not that difficult. There's very interesting history, very complicated history, and definitely a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah.
And I think it shines through with all your films also, starting with Sink already. That's less a historical piece, but now I think you have 2 screenings this year, right? For
Of Sink or FIELA'S CHILD?
no, not the Sink, but this there was sorry. First, we have the one that we're going to screen tonight,
Yes.
but there was another story about lady called Rachel.
Yes, so that's
Yeah.
Sink. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my first feature, and yeah, that was a very contemporary look at class, race in South Africa. Whereas the current film, FIELA'S CHILD, is actually based on a novel that we all studied in school. I read it at age 12, and that's set in the late 1800s in Southern Africa. So very much a look at, I think, the context that created the current situation in South Africa. But yeah, lots of stories to tell, and for me it always comes from either a question or a human experience that I encounter, and the story just grows from there. With the film that's showing at Talon, that was a book, so I kind of just took what I loved from it and put it onto screen.
Was it a long dream to do this film? Like,
It was kind of, I think for me it was such an honor. I never thought, I didn't even know the rights were available to make it into a film, and I was at a publishing event, and the publishers was brought up that it was, and I was like, get on the phone, we need to get the rights to this now, and we got it within a month, and from there it was just dreaming as to how would I want to tell the story.
And quite a challenge. I think it's a very popular book over there. I didn't know about the story earlier, but I learned a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's even school streets, even small places named by this book and the characters in it, and it's it's a great story. And even I didn't want to see the film before because I love to see them on the big screen. But checking out the trailer already, the music and the combination of pictures is super nice and definitely very inviting and very. You can sense the emotion right away, starting from the first seconds already. So.
Yeah, I think that's what moved me as a kid reading the book, and in many ways this is my own love letter to my mother. I see a lot of similarities in how the lead character reacts and pursues her son, her children, to what I experienced from my own mother, the idea that she would cross mountains to get me if I was ever taken away from her. So it was so beautiful for me to have this opportunity to use my craft to actually create a love letter for her. So I think a lot of feeling goes into that, a lot of romanticism, probably in the more classical sense of the word, where I think with any great literature, you're able to find those tones of emotion and hopefully bring them to the screen.
Have you discussed the film with the writer herself also?
She passed away. I forget when she did, but her daughter was the person that I was dealing with, and it was beautiful after the screening we had in South Africa for her to come and tell me her mother would be very proud of the film that we presented.
Just a great story to add to the film itself.
I think in South Africa, it's one of in a lot of family homes, you've got the Bible sitting on the shelf, and then this book is sitting right next to it. So it's one where there was a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations. So for me as a director, we actually didn't announce to the press we were making the film until we'd actually finished shooting. I didn't want any of my actors to bring the expectation that the public would put on them into the creation process, especially with social media today. Once word gets out that a film is being made, everyone has their opinion and they put it out there. And I really wanted to protect the production space so that it was pure and we were only creating. And after that we made the press releases. And in terms of how it was received in South Africa, largely positive responses, but as with any book, I think people have a version in their head of how they want it to be, and if it doesn't match that...
Everybody has their own film rolling already in their heads.
And we surrendered to that. We knew we were never going to please everyone, but the people we made it for really just appreciated it.
So a bold move. Congratulations.
And for me, I'm English first language, and this is an Afrikaans narrative. So in essence, I'm an outsider taking a novel that was very meaningful to me, but telling someone else's story and trying to be as collaborative and respectful of the culture, of the people and of the narrative, while still maintaining my own voice and style.
Yeah, as you said, fifth generation settler, so it's first of all, it's how important is the heritage for you, like the family heritage, just connected to South African culture?
I think with South Africa, because it is such a melting pot of cultures, we're all outsiders to someone else's language, culture or expression. And I think in the current age where there are nationalist voices that are rising and people wanting to stay in their tribes and build walls, I'm of the opinion that we need to build bridges to each other, and the best way to do so is through story. And I think the outsider is the best person to tell a story because they're not held hostage to cultural sacred cows or things that you can't do, but they ruin it when they don't do their research or when they don't respect the culture. So for me, it was so important to make sure that I had partners both in the creation of the film, but then also the writing, just telling me like, okay, you might not see this, but you would. This is how I would experience this moment that you've told, and by doing so, I feel that the audience we made it for felt respected, felt honored, and therefore gave me a permission to exist as an artist in that space.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, as this culture bridge building, in a sense, I think it's a very good story to start with. It's the honestness of the children and the connection between these two totally different persons. And I think it reflects very well the problems in the society and all the small stories that hide behind it. Because Yeah.
I think for me, in an age of group identity politics where people are trying to say there is one experience if you're white, if you're black, if you're gay, if you're straight, if you're male, you're female, I love narratives that kind of give the middle finger to that, because I don't believe there's one black story or gay story or female story, but that there's nuance in our experiences. And this is a narrative of a white boy who is raised in a mixed race family, and the first time he sees a white man, he calls him master, because that's the context he's grown up in. So this idea that he could have a white skin, have access to all of that white privilege, but at the same time in his being and his essence, he's been raised in a non-white community.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's where I started, where the story came from and how it started, and then there must be a bunch of them still hiding somewhere. And and I think with the film, probably you build up some kind of sense of trust in the other side of the people also, and I hope it's gonna pop up some new stories maybe that haven't reached you before. So
no, big time. It's my honor to be able to go into spaces that are not my own. I believe all storytellers, or all storytelling is an act of going into a place where you don't necessarily have permission. If we restrict storytellers or filmmakers to only being able to tell stories that they are, as opposed to what they know, and you know things either through research, lived, or actual study. But if filmmakers are only telling stories of the group that they belong to, then we're never going to tell stories, because there's a very thin line that you have to stick to then.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But in overall, filmmaking in South Africa, I know it's a super popular location, and has been for a long time already. And how difficult it is to push yourself through to become a director.
There's some struggle involved, and I use that word very loosely. I'm not a single mother working 3 jobs to, put food on the table, but it's a chosen struggle in that you wait years to get the opportunity. You're constantly pushing yourself into the room, trying to get the money in place, trying to get the rights to the story, and then actually doing the work. And then often when the opportunity presents itself, you have this insecurity as, can I actually do this? So I think it's an incredible human experience, and I'm so honored that I get the opportunity to do so. And I've just been afforded the privilege to do it. But it's taken many years of patience. I don't think it's that I'm necessarily the most talented person. I believe there are way more talented people than me, but life has just not afforded them those 4 or 5 years of perhaps waiting for a project to come to the forefront. So I'm eternally grateful for any film that I do get to do. I work hard, and I definitely have talent. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to pretend I don't. But those things are not always the reason a film gets made. It's honestly privilege comes into the space, patience, and then luck. You meet the right person at the right festival, and they connect you to someone else, and then boom, you're making your next movie.
Yeah, and I think definitely this story in hand, it will touch people from all over the world, because it's of course it's a specific story about one place, one culture, and people, but definitely it reaches out, and I think it's an inspiration for many other people also. And I think it's popping out more and more that people are trying to find the trails back to their roots and where they come from, and I think it's a very good thing. We just had a very open discussion with a director from Mexico, Alvaro, and we figured out the same thing, that it's beautiful that people are ending up more and more with these old stories.
Yeah.
And beautiful stories where people are just people without any boundaries.
Yeah, and I think there is this thing of there's a great author, Chimamanda, I forget her last name, from Nigeria, but she speaks about the danger of a single story, and how if you do want to control the people, you reduce them to one narrative. And for South Africa, we always get stuck in the kind of apartheid narrative of the 1960s to the 1990s, and we don't get the opportunity often to tell stories outside of that space. For Mexico, they get stuck in the drug or immigration narrative in terms of world cinema. So I'm very excited when you see films that go beyond that, and definitely the case with this was to set something in the late 1800s to I'm very interested to see how international audiences engage with a version of Africa that they perhaps have never seen before on screen, because it's set in a space and characters in wardrobe which haven't always made it to the world stage.
It's like African Western in a sense, because the landscape is fairly similar in the film itself, and of course location-wise, South Africa is a super place to film.
Yeah, it's beautiful to film. Yeah.
So it's like all the other guys are trying to find their way to South Africa. You're already there.
It's on our doorstep. we definitely make use of it.
So, but let's see about the filmmaking. Just to open you up a bit more. What do you think? What makes a good director?
To me, a director, in terms of performance and actors, the director is a mirror to their actors. I really don't know how people act and direct. We were chatting a little earlier about that. Because to do the kind of acting that I appreciate, you have to be completely present in the role. You're not thinking about camera, you're not thinking about that stuff, but to direct you have to be thinking of all those things. The best way I could describe directing, which was told to me at film school, was that you stand before a blank canvas and there's a group of 20 people and each has a paintbrush with a color, and you can't pick up that paintbrush, but you've got to try and guide them, each with their own ego, each with their own creative style, to some point of synergy where a painting is presented at the end of the day. And that's, to me, the best directors have a high emotional intelligence. They're able to read the social dynamics on set and to bring out the best out of their performers. And I mean, especially when it comes to my actors, I do love to figure out what their reward system is, what threatens their security, what makes them more stable, and use that to help craft the characters. It's great tools in the back pocket, but when I hear of technical directors who don't engage with the emotional components of their actors or their crew, I think they're working at a loss, because really when you go into that realm, sure, it's fine for me to know cameras, and I do, I can talk edit with my editor, I can go into great detail, but if I'm not engaging with them on a human level, something's missing. And with all my films, I like to find an element from nature that ends up becoming a guiding force for the film. With my first one, it was water. With this current one, it was wood. And not in the most obvious ways, but I would give wood to each department and tell them, use this to inspire something on an elemental level. So the actors would learn their lines with a plant. We decided that the camera work needed to feel rooted like a tree, which meant no handheld, no drone shots. Everything is stuck to the ground the way a tree does. It echoed into the sound design, the music, just this core element of wood coming through and guiding us. And to me, that activates something on an emotion level, and also then just on a practical one.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine having a technical director on this kind of film. It's
a struggle. Yeah. Look, for me, and especially with the lead actresses in both of my films, an incredible bond is just formed, and it doesn't just stop when we yell cut. To me, it's to walk. I think it's the responsibility of the director, especially with your lead actors, is to help walk them through what it is like to have your film screened for the first time, that emotional experience, because it's a roller coaster for them. So with all my actors, I don't like them to watch the film for the first time at the premiere. We will have a private screening where it's just us, because every actor, the first time they watch the movie, they're only watching their performance. And then if you do it at a premiere, now they've got to rush out feeling the most vulnerable and naked they've ever felt, and now they've got to talk to the press. To me, I don't want an actor to ever go through that, so I make sure that we, as best as I can, that we watch it together. And then the second time for them is when the press is watching it. But yeah, I think the role of a director to me is to guide your crew and your cast in the best way that you can. I mean, you can't do that with every person, but it doesn't end when you yell cut, and definitely not on my sets. It's a human, spiritual experience, this creation of art, and you don't just leave it when the camera shuts off. Yeah,
of course. And especially with this film, working with kids, it's a totally different story.
We had kids, we had ostriches, horses, elephants. It was just everything they tell you not to do in film school. We had that there. And I was just so impressed with the emotional intelligence of the children, where a lot of them when I had watched Capernaum, the film by Nadine, I forget her last name, the performance she got from those children, I do not know how you get, because often there's a lot of manipulation as a director that you have to do, because there's certain scenes a kid won't understand, and you can't talk to them the way you direct adults. But with a lot of the kids on the set, I was able to give them thought processes and motivations, and they would engage, they'd think, and then they'd deliver, and I was really impressed with what they did.
It seems quite a difficult task to get the kid to play his role, and for me even maybe difficult to get him out of it.
Yeah. I think it too. Well, I really have to compliment the parents of each of the children, because there at least one parent in the parents group would be there on set, and especially with Luca, who plays the main role. His mom was there every day. She helped him prepare the lines. I mean, this kid had monologues, and he was always ready on set, and I was just so grateful to her for being there as a mother. She's just to help walk him out of those moments and prepare him, because I definitely didn't have the capacity to do so.
And a lot of emotional moments with this moment. So
yeah, no, I'm really quite proud of what they did there. We spent a long time auditioning and trying to find the right children, and I think it really paid off for us. Yeah.
You definitely have your role in it. I can't imagine it's it's even talking to you. I sense that you're good with people, and I think it's a super important thing. I can't imagine it without it. You know.
Yeah, and that's to me like you can direct a film without that. But to me, why would I want to miss out on this incredible opportunity to meet people who are not from my circles, children, people 30 years my age, different cultures, languages. I lose a huge life experience if I don't choose to engage with that. And I'm genuinely very interested in people, and my reward system as a director and as a human is positive engagement with another person. So filmmaking just facilitates that in an incredible way.
And it definitely reflects back from the crew also.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, inevitably, I imagine you do end up having one or two fights where. But I think I like to choose people I trust, so that I don't have to micromanage. I think there is a side of me that could go that way, but I was always, on both my films, the least experienced person on set, and that was by design, because I want a production designer who is way more experienced than me, who can take the little bit that I give her and then run with it and do something I could never have envisioned. I think you get the auteur director who we all tend to worship, and we love the kind of stuff that they make, but I feel that we have glamorized that persona to an unhealthy point where I remember with my first film, I felt the pressure to be the source of all genius and like be the one who made everything happen. And I think by the third day, I realized very quickly, if I'm the person who's going to make everything brilliant, I'm going to be my own bottleneck, and it's not going to go beyond me. But if I have geniuses in each of their field doing their thing, I look better at the end of the day. The work is better, and it takes all the pressure off of you.
But all right, wonderful having you here. As a people's person to a people's person, I could talk to you for hours. But
I told you it'd be hard to shut me up.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
In Estonia and in the studio. So.
Thank you.
Niisiis, siin siis oli väike usutlus filmi režissööri Bretiga ja kindlasti soovitan kinno vaata minna, tegemist on väga jõulise looga, väga nii pildi kui muusika mõttes. Nii et kindlasti üks film, mida mingil juhul mitte vahele jätta. Nii et kohtume kinos.